Joining us on the line now is Virginia Delegate Tag Greason. He's here to talk about what's going on with the Virginia budget. Good morning, Delegate Greason. Good to have you.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
All right, so we are sort of surprised. I think many people were surprised when this story started emerging the other day that said that there may be a $300 million shortfall, a gap in the budget. Tell us how we learned about this and what is being done behind the scenes to try to solve this problem.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on because it's a very important issue that we should be talking about. As you may recall, we actually had a very good report coming out of April suggesting that our revenues in Virginia were up and that everything looked like it was on track. Unfortunately, we expected a little bit of a downturn in May revenue collections, but it was a much, much greater downturn. At the middle of the month, we are at about 17% down on our forecast.
Now, look. What was going on that caused that? I mean, you knew something was likely to happen because you expected a downturn, but what was going on that made this downturn worse than expected?
Well, it's really much larger than Virginia. We're seeing downturns in Maryland and in Pennsylvania, in North Carolina.
Do you know what's driving it?
So there's definitely some macro trends that are pressing on us. The first, we think, is an overall fear of what ultimately could happen in the region as it relates to withholdings and people trying to plan for the remainder of their year. We saw the government shut down at the end of last year at the federal level. We've seen uncertainty in the market for some time. I think there's a little bit of a reserve in the market that is causing people to hold back a little bit. The second thing we've seen is after a very long cold winter, we saw a lot of reduced spending at the consumer level. People weren't going out to dinner, they weren't going out shopping, and some of that is now starting to flow through to the economy, and we're seeing those two trends driving this downward pressure.
Delegate Greason, you were already at an impasse with Governor McAuliffe as well as the Democrat-led Senate there in terms of the budget, and a lot of it had to do with McAuliffe's desire to expand Medicaid in the Commonwealth against the wishes of the people of the Commonwealth. How does this additional $300 million shortfall sort of compound that issue and make it even harder to reach an agreement?
Well, you're absolutely right. We are and have been at an impasse. Those of us in the House Republicans, believe that we shouldn't expand Medicaid in Virginia. We've seen what that's done at the national level. We've seen what the Affordable Care Act has done overall, and we know that people are not looking to expand a program that has proven to be somewhat inefficient and ineffective. So we are resisting bringing that program to Virginia and expanding it. But the problem was the House and the Senate were within 0.1% in agreeing on a budget if you take Medicaid out and pass the budget and move forward. This downturn puts additional pressure on that negotiation. 0.1% was $20 to $26 million difference. We could figure that out in a matter of a day. But now that we have a $300 or $350 million deficit, we're going to have to spend a lot more time negotiating what money goes to K-12, what money goes to higher ed, what money goes to our health care system, and that pressure really accelerates and exacerbates the time to get this done before the June 30 deadline.
And so given that, are you getting any indication from the governor's office that they are willing to back off of this unbelievable desire to expand Medicaid and expand the liabilities for the Commonwealth, or is he still pressing on that issue?
We had an opportunity to meet with the governor, a private meeting on Monday that now he's talked about and we've talked about. So I'll share with you, I don't think he's willing to back off. He is still holding strong to this position that he thinks we can benefit by expanding the program here in Virginia. We absolutely disagree with that. What I do see, though, in his public statements and in his private statements, that he is unwilling to shut down the government. And that is a huge plus. That is a huge step forward, that he realizes we can't hold 8 million Virginians hostage and not pass a budget. And that's really what governing is all about. and I'm happy that he's taking that step, that we've got to solve the problem and potentially come back and debate Medicaid expansion at a separate time.
Listen, I hear you, but I don't get the sense that Terry McAuliffe is a guy who's willing to blink on this issue, and I don't get the sense that you guys over in the House of Delegates are willing to blink on this issue. So how is it going to get ultimately resolved?
Well, I think that the pressure of this news on Monday of the deficit, 300 to 350 million, really has kind of sobered the situation. In the past, I felt like there was a lot of very flippant comments from the governor saying, well, we'll work it out, it will figure itself out. Well, we now have our backs up against the wall. And the prudent thing to do is for us to stand strong and govern properly, solve the problem. And I think that there is a willingness from the administration to work with us to solve the problem. The solution really needs to be get the budget passed, let our localities continue on with their budget process, and then the governor call us back for a special session. That really is the only path, and I hope the governor and his administration are now seeing that as the only viable path.
Our guest is Delegate Tag Greason, Republican there in Richmond, coming out of Loudoun, though. And I got to ask you if I can just throw another question at you, Delegate Greason. We speak to Virginians every single morning here for hours, and one of the things that's really stuck in their craw right now is how the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, winning by only a very small handful of votes, about a couple hundred votes, has just sort of rewritten the Commonwealth's law. In the case of same-sex marriage, constitutionally he's rewritten it, and he continues to just sort of run roughshod over the will of the Virginians who have voted for other things that they wanted. Is there any stomach in the House of Delegates there to actually push back? You have a pretty good majority there. Can you push back against this Attorney General and actually do something to rein him in?
You know, Mark Herring is a senator, a previous senator from Loudoun, so I've known Mark for many years. And
he ran. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but he ran as someone who was not going to be partisan and not be ideological.
That's exactly where I was going with this. He literally has changed his stripes since he's gone down to Richmond. I've known Mark for years. He seemed to be a very moderate, a very business-focused guy. And now that he's the Attorney General, it's amazing to me to see how partisan he has become in driving some of these issues that are not the top 3, 4, 5 issues in the district. People want to know about education. They want to know about transportation. What are you doing about jobs and the economy? And for him to be railing on these issues that are so divisive and so partisan is an absolute shock to me.
Wow.
But to answer your question, yeah, we do have the stomach. We attempted to pass a law in Virginia through the House. It got through the House. It died in the Senate that would say if the Attorney General is unwilling to defend the laws and uphold the Constitution, which is his job, then the House of Delegates would have standing in a court to defend those laws and uphold that Constitution. Now, that law didn't pass because the Democratic Senate and the governor were not going to go along with that, but we're going to continue to find angles where we can push back on the Attorney General and make sure that we're doing what we think is right to move Virginia forward.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Delegate Tag Greason, thanks for joining us. Greatly appreciated.